The Iridian fleet was utterly shredded after learning the hard way not to mess with humans. Anthony Campbell downed his whiskey in the dimly lit station bar. A green-skinned Iridian, his spotted head adorned with a diplomat's crest, approached and sat on the stool beside him. "You are human," the Iridian said. "I am Solaris of the Eternal Kingdom. I seek knowledge." Campbell smirked. "Let me guess, you want to know why we kicked your scaly asses when you tried invading Earth." Solaris admitted, "My people are perplexed. Your technology was primitive, yet you resisted our conquest fiercely. I must understand how." Campbell took another swig of his whiskey. "See, when your Eternal Kingdom found us, we weren't even properly spacefaring yet. You thought we'd be easy pickings." Solaris nodded. "Our assessment indicated your species would submit quickly to assimilation. We did not anticipate such opposition." Campbell leaned in close. "That's exactly what you got wrong. You underestimated our most powerful weapon, our sheer stubborn will to stay free, no matter what. See, we'll fight to the bitter end against anyone trying to conquer or subdue us, even against impossible odds, even if it means extinction over submission." Solaris looked perplexed. "Your civilization would sooner perish than bend the knee." "Damn right we would," Campbell responded. "And that's what your leaders failed to grasp when they sent warships to subdue Earth. We didn't roll over like you pricks expected. The Iridians had these massive battleships that looked like they could crack planets in half. They showed up in Earth's orbit, all confident and ready to claim us as their newest conquest. But we weren't about to just roll over." Campbell took another swig of whiskey and grinned. "See, we knew we couldn't match them ship to ship, so we had to get creative. Our special forces teams infiltrated their vessels, snuck on board, and started wreaking havoc from the inside. They sabotaged systems, cut power, and generally caused a whole mess of problems for the Iridian crews." Solaris shook his head in disbelief. "Infiltration? But our security," Campbell interrupted. "You relied too much on your fancy tech. Once our hackers got into your systems, it was chaos. They crashed your computers, shut down shields and weapons at critical moments, and that was just the start." Campbell leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "We sent salvage teams to recover every scrap of Iridian tech that fell to Earth: weapons, engines, computer cores. We stripped them down to the bolts and figured out how they worked. It wasn't easy, but we learned fast when our asses are on the line. Soon we were building our own versions, crude at first, but enough to even the odds a bit." Solaris looked confused. "Your tactics were unfamiliar, but our forces were vastly superior. How did you prevail?" Campbell's face darkened. "Like I said, we didn't fight fair. We went after your supply ships, your comm relays, anything that would hurt your ability to keep fighting. We even sent Black Ops teams to Iridia. They carried out strikes on the families of your commanders, your political leaders. Nasty business, but it struck fear into your hearts." Solaris recoiled slightly, his eyes wide. Campbell continued, "Your warriors had never fought an enemy like us, one that wouldn't surrender, that would do anything to win. We made you bleed for every inch and we never stopped coming. In the end, you tucked tail and ran. The mighty Iridian kingdom beaten by a bunch of hairless apes who wouldn't kneel." Campbell paused to take another sip of whiskey before continuing his grim tale. "Zakor was a real piece of work. Mean son of a bitch. See, when Iridia started losing, he took it personal, decided to make an example out of Earth. The old soldier's eyes grew distant, seeing horrors from long ago. Zakor, he pulled out all the stops: orbital bombardment, reducing whole cities to rubble. Must have killed millions in the first waves alone, but that wasn't enough for him." Solaris leaned forward, morbid curiosity and disgust warring on his face. Campbell went on. "The crazy bastard unleashed bioweapons, nasty stuff tailored to human biology. Decimated entire populations, people choking to death in the streets, blood pouring out of every hole in their body. Even the Iridian troops weren't safe. Zakor sent them on suicide missions to radiation-soaked planets, the works. Anything to hurt us by the gods," Solaris whispered. "That's monstrous. How could any commander sacrifice his own soldiers so coldly?" Campbell barked a harsh laugh. "That's your way, ain't it? You pricks will do anything to win, conquer, subjugate, destroy. That's the Iridian Missouri." He shook his head. "But here's the thing: Zakor fucked up. See, he thought he could break us. Thought if he killed enough of us, bombed enough of our cities, we'd fall to our knees and beg for mercy." A fierce, proud smile split Campbell's weathered face. "But that ain't the human way. We didn't break, we got pissed. The more Zakor tried to grind us down, the harder we fought back. Militias formed up in every town, every city. We rallied around anyone who could lead, anyone who could strike back at you bastards. He pointed a calloused finger at Solaris. Your boy Zakor. He turned the whole damn planet against him. Bombed out cities became guerrilla strongholds. Poisoned populations became fanatic resistors. We fought you in the rubble, in the forests, even in the damn sewers. We fought with guns, bombs, our bare hands if we had to. Even as Earth burned, we never stopped fighting. Campbell slammed his empty glass down on the bar. That's what you pricks never understood. Humans don't kneel easy. We'd rather die on our feet than live under your boot. And if there's one thing we're good at, it's fighting till our last breath against bastards like you. Anthony leaned forward, the dim bar lights casting shadows across his craggy face. You want to know about a real hero? A man who gave the Iridians hell on Earth? That was Jason Riker. Solaris tilted his head quizzically. I've not heard this name. You wouldn't have. See, Riker wasn't some general or politician. He was a soldier through and through. Lost his whole damn family in the first days of the invasion. Wife, kids, all gone in a blink. Campbell took a slow pull from his whiskey. But Riker, he didn't break. No, he got even. Rounded up a crew of hard asses just like him and started hitting the Iridians where it hurt: supply convoys, weapons depots, comm relays. If it had an Iridian flag on it, Riker's boys turned it to scrap. Solaris frowned. But one man, no matter how skilled, could not truly threaten Iridian forces. It would take more than raids to. You ain't heard the best part. Campbell cut in. See, Riker pulled off the impossible. Somehow he and his crew snuck aboard Zakor's own damn flagship, planted enough explosives to crack the hull wide open, and sent that flying fortress into the dirt like a meteor. The Iridian's eyes widened. He infiltrated the command ship. But the security didn't mean a thing to Riker. Like I said, the man specialized in the impossible. Campbell leaned back, a fierce glint of pride in his eye. Riker's little stunt bought Earth precious time. Zakor was out of the fight, his ship a smoking crater. Gave us a chance to regroup, shore up our defenses. He shook his head. Couldn't beat you bastards head on though. Had to get clever. We lured your troops into kill zones, used the terrain against you. Mountains, forests, even the ruins of our own cities all became death traps for Iridian soldiers. A harsh laugh. Hell, we even snatched up some of those bioweapons you used on us, tweaked them in the lab to give you scaly fucks a taste of your own medicine. See how you like choking on your own blood for a change. Campbell paused, his grizzled face somber as he recounted the war's pivotal moment. It all hinged on Riker's daring mission to capture that sadistic bastard Zakor. Our best fighters infiltrated his command center, dressed as Iridian grunts, bluffed their way past security, then stormed Zakor's inner sanctum, guns blazing. Solaris leaned in, captivated, and Riker himself confronted Zakor. A nod, one-on-one, hand-to-hand. Riker was a brawler, tough as nails. Zakor, for all his cruelty, was still a warrior. It was a brutal fight. Campbell's eyes gleamed as he recounted the clash. They pummeled each other, slamming into walls, smashing furniture. Blood spattered, bones cracked. But in the end, Riker had the bastard pinned, battered into submission. Incredible, Solaris breathed. To defeat Zakor in single combat, Riker dragged his scaly ass before the cameras, broadcasting to every Iridian ship and outpost. Let them all see their leader broken and humbled by a lowly human. Campbell smiled coldly. Shattered their morale, made them realize they weren't the invincible conquerors they thought. And it lit a fire under every human still drawing breath. He leaned back, savoring the memory. With Zakor locked up, the Iridian chain of command was in shambles. Humans struck hard and fast, hammering their weak points. We even hijacked some of their ships, turning them against the Iridian armada in hit-and-run tactics, picking them off one by one. Anthony's grizzled face darkened as he recounted the Iridians' desperate gambit. Those scaly bastards just wouldn't quit. Even with their fleet in tatters and their general locked up, they still had one last trick up their sleeve. He leaned forward, his voice low and ominous. They called it the Devourer, a ship so massive it blotted out the sun, with enough firepower to crack a planet in half. They aimed it right at Earth, ready to wipe us out in one final, desperate move. Solaris shuddered, his green skin paling. A planet killer? They would go that far. Genocide's always been the Iridian way, Anthony spat. But we weren't about to let them have the last word. Riker cooked up a plan crazier than anything he'd pulled before. The old soldier's eyes took on a distant look as he recounted the desperate mission. A handful of our best infiltrated the Devourer. Riker led them himself, of course. They fought through decks of Iridian troops, clawing their way to the reactor core. His fist clenched, knuckles white. They knew it was a one-way trip. Riker armed the charges himself, stared down a horde of Iridians as the timer ticked. He made damn sure those bombs went off, even if he had to go with them. Solaris listened in stunned silence. Anthony continued, his voice rough. The Devourer lit up like a second sun, tore itself apart from the inside, shrapnel punching through the Iridian fleet. Their whole armada wiped out in a heartbeat. He shook his head, something between a laugh and a growl. Riker's sacrifice shattered the Iridians, made them realize just what kind of enemy they were facing, an enemy that would give anything, sacrifice anything, to stay free. Anthony drained his glass, slamming it down. That's the thing about humans. We don't kneel, not for anyone or anything. Riker showed the galaxy that when he took out the Devourer, showed everyone the lengths we'll go to protect what's ours. His fierce gaze bored into Solaris. The Iridians thought they could break us, but in the end, it was humanity that broke them. We made them bleed, made them pay for every inch of our world they tried to take. And when the smoke cleared, it was our flag still flying over Earth, not theirs. Anthony's eyes blazed with righteous anger as he recounted humanity's daring counterattack. The Iridians thought they'd broken us, that we'd cower in fear after they retreated. But they were dead wrong. He slammed his fist on the bar, making Solaris jump. Admiral Vostro, she was a tactical genius. She knew we had to hit the bastards hard and fast before they could regroup. So she took our captured ships, crewed them with the meanest, toughest sons of Earth had to offer, and launched a blitzkrieg across Iridian space. The old soldier grinned fiercely. We targeted their supply convoys first. Vostro sent strike teams to board the ships, neutralize the crews, and steal everything that wasn't nailed down: food, weapons, fuel. We snatched it all right out from under their scaly noses. Solaris listened, rapt, as Anthony painted a vivid picture. Next, we hit their comm relays. Infiltration teams snuck aboard, planted viruses and logic bombs in the systems. Soon the Iridians were flying blind and deaf, their fleets cut off from each other and their leadership. He chuckled darkly. But the real prize was the shipyards. Vostro led the assault herself, a joint operation with the rebel factions we'd been arming in secret. They struck the dockyards at Karar, the Iridian key manufacturing hub, smashed the orbital defenses, stormed the control centers, and left nothing but flames and ruin behind. Anthony leaned back, satisfaction etched on his craggy face. In one fell swoop, we crippled their ability to replenish their losses and build new ships. It was a masterstroke, a move they never saw coming. Solaris shook his head in disbelief. I had no idea your species was capable of such audacity. Anthony barked a laugh. That's putting it mildly. Vostro's raids bought us precious time, kept the Iridians off balance. But she knew it couldn't last forever. Sooner or later they'd regroup and come at us twice as hard. We needed a knockout blow. His eyes took on a distant look. That's when we set our sights on Iridia Prime itself, the heart of the Eternal Kingdom. The plan was to incite a mass uprising among the slave races, hit the capital while the Iridians were busy putting out fires on a dozen worlds. Anthony shook his head ruefully. It was a gamble, a hell of a long shot. But by then we were used to playing against the odds. And if there was one thing the Iridians never understood, it was the lengths free beings will go to when you push them too far. Anthony's eyes gleamed with pride as he recounted humanity's cunning diplomacy during the ceasefire. See, the Iridians thought they could use that break to lick their wounds and come back swinging. But we weren't about to let that happen. He leaned forward, his voice low and conspiratorial. We sent envoys to every species the Eternal Kingdom had ground under their heel: the Zorgons, the Scions, even the Vieri. We reached out to all of them, offered them a chance to throw off their chains and join us in the fight. Solaris listened, his eyes wide with disbelief. Anthony continued, his words painting a vivid picture. The Scions were the first to sign on. Turns out, for all their talk of loyalty, the Iridians treated them like dirt. We gave them a taste of real respect, real partnership, and they jumped at the chance to stick it to their old masters. He chuckled, shaking his head. With the Zorgon stealth tech on our side, we were able to slip right under the Iridian noses. Our infiltration teams snuck into their shipyards, their weapons depots, even their command centers planted charges, swiped intel, generally made a nuisance of ourselves. Anthony's grin turned sly. But the real coup was hijacking their propaganda machine. See, the Iridians loved to boast about their invincible empire, about how resistance was futile. We flipped the script on them. He mimed a broadcast, his voice mockingly grandiose. People of the Eternal Kingdom, your leaders have lied to you. Even now, the free species of the galaxy are rising up, casting off the shackles of Iridian oppression. Join us, and together we will build a new future one, where all beings are equal and none live in fear. Anthony leaned back, satisfaction etched on his weathered face. You should have seen the looks on those scaly bastards' faces when they realized their own airwaves had been turned against them. Half their vassal states were in open rebellion before they even knew what hit them. Solaris could only gape, struggling to process this new information. I had no idea. In the Eternal Kingdom, they always told us the vassal species were content, that they welcomed our guidance. Anthony snorted derisively. Welcomed it? More like you beat them down until they were too scared to say otherwise. But the humans, we gave them hope. Showed them that no matter how long you've been under the boot, there's always a chance to rise up and fight for your freedom. He fixed Solaris with a fierce, unwavering stare. That's the power of the human spirit. We don't just fight for ourselves, but for everyone who's ever been told to kneel. And when we stand together, there's no force in the universe that can keep us down. Anthony's eyes glinted as he leaned even closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Doctor. Sensen, she was a real piece of work, brilliant mind and tough as nails to boot. When the humans captured Dr. Silo and his Mind Weaver device, she was the first one to dive in and start tinkering. Solaris listened intently, his green skin paling at the mention of the infamous device. Anthony continued, painting a vivid picture. Sensen and her team worked around the clock, trying to crack the Mind Weaver's secrets. It was like nothing they'd ever seen before, a machine that could reach into your very thoughts, bend your will to its master's desires. He shuddered, remembering the horror stories that had trickled out from the Iridian slave worlds. The things the Iridians did with that device, it still gives me nightmares. Entire populations reduced to mindless drones, living only to serve their scaly overlords. Anthony took a swig of his drink, as if to wash away the bitter taste of the memories. But Sensen, she was determined to turn the tables. She pored over the Mind Weaver schematics, studying every circuit and line of code, looking for a weakness. His voice dropped to a low growl. And then, after weeks of sleepless nights and countless dead ends, she found a way to rewire the device to broadcast a signal of liberation instead of enslavement. Solaris's eyes widened in disbelief. She actually managed to reverse the Mind Weaver's effects. Anthony nodded, a fierce grin splitting his craggy face. Damn right she did. It was a thing of beauty, watching that signal go out across the Iridian comm networks. One minute, the slaves were docile and obedient. The next, they were tearing off their shackles and turning on their masters. He slammed his fist on the bar, punctuating his words. It was chaos, pure and simple. Iridian overseers torn limb from limb by the very beings they'd oppressed for so long. Supply lines shattered, communications in shambles, all because the lowly humans had dared to do the impossible. Anthony leaned back, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. And in the midst of all that glorious mayhem, Admiral Vostro saw her chance. She rallied the human fleet for one final, all-out assault on the Iridian homeworld itself. His voice rose, the tale of humanity's ultimate triumph pouring out of him in a rush. They came out of the void like avenging angels, all guns blazing and engines roaring. The Iridians, so used to being the predators, never stood a chance. The battle was fierce, a maelstrom of fire and blood and shattered hulls. But in the end, it was the human flag that flew over the smoking ruins of the Eternal Palace. The Iridian Emperor, the same bastard who'd ordered the invasion of Earth all those years ago, was dragged out in chains to face the judgment of those he'd wronged. Anthony drained the last of his whiskey, slamming the glass down with an air of finality. And that, my friend, is how a bunch of hairless apes from a backwater world brought the mighty Eternal Kingdom to its knees with nothing more than guts, ingenuity, and the sheer stubborn refusal to bow to anyone's tyranny. He fixed Solaris with a piercing stare, his eyes alight with the fire of hard-won victory. Remember that the next time you or your kind think about trying to conquer someone else's home, Because no matter how advanced your tech or how vast your empire, there's one thing you'll never be able to control: the indomitable will of a species that would rather die on its feet than live on its knees. Anthony grimaced as he recounted the bloody final assault on Iridia Prime. Vostro's fleet smashed through the planetary defense grid, Iridian ships splintering under the onslaught. Drop pods rained down, disgorging hardened Marines onto the surface. They slogged through bogs and ruins, weathering ambushes and artillery fire. The Iridian Guard fought fanatically, contesting every inch. Casualties mounted as the humans pressed toward the looming palace. Freed slaves rose up, turning Mind-Weaver-induced rage on their former masters. They tore into the Iridian rear, sowing chaos. It bought the assault precious momentum. Riker led the spearhead, rallying the troops. They blasted through barricades, storming the palace grounds. Brutal close-quarters battle erupted in the halls, a grinding meat grinder of a fight. At last, they breached the throne room. The Emperor awaited, a towering figure in glistening armor. He and Riker circled, trading taunts and blows. They clashed in a whirlwind of slashing blades and shattering armor. The duel raged back and forth, neither warrior giving ground. Blood slicked the floor as grievous wounds were dealt. With a roar, Riker plunged his sword through the Emperor's chest. The Iridian tyrant crumpled, his reign ended in a clatter of armor. But Riker too slumped to the floor, pierced by the Emperor's poisoned blade. His troops gathered around as he gasped his last breaths. "We did it," Riker wheezed, blood flecking his lips. "Humans. Galaxy." Freya's smile ghosted across his battered face. Then the light faded from his eyes and he lay still. After that, the Iridian will to resist crumbled. Anthony said, "Most surrendered to the Allied fleets. The stubborn ones fled to the fringes, but the Eternal Kingdom was finished once, and for all." He paused, his expression a mix of pride and sorrow. Riker's sacrifice wasn't in vain. It showed the galaxy what it means to fight for freedom, to never give up, no matter the cost. Solaris sat in stunned silence, absorbing the weight of Anthony's tale. The bar around them buzzed with the quiet hum of conversations, but for a moment it felt like they were the only two beings in the universe. "I will remember your words," Anthony Campbell Solaris said finally. "And I will make sure others do too." Anthony nodded, his gaze distant, as if seeing the faces of all those who had fought and died for the cause of freedom. "You do that, Solaris. You make sure they remember. Because if there's one thing humanity has taught the galaxy, it's that freedom is worth any price." Solaris sat quietly for a moment, letting the weight of Anthony's tale settle in. The bar around them buzzed with the quiet hum of conversations, but for that moment it felt as if they were the only two beings in the universe. Finally, Solaris spoke, his voice tinged with newfound respect. "I will remember your words, Anthony Campbell, and I will make sure others do too." Anthony nodded, his gaze distant, as if seeing the faces of all those who had fought and died for the cause of freedom. "You do that, Solaris. You make sure they remember. Because if there's one thing humanity has taught the galaxy, it's that freedom is worth any price." As the conversation drew to a close, Anthony stood up, leaving a few credits on the bar to cover his tab. He turned to Solaris one last time. "Take care, Solaris. And remember, the spirit of resistance can never be conquered." Solaris watched Anthony walk out of the bar, a sense of awe and respect filling him. He sat there for a few more moments, contemplating the incredible story he had just heard. The Iridian diplomat knew that his mission would now include a deep understanding and respect for the indomitable will of humanity. The tale of Earth's defiance and ultimate triumph over the Iridian invaders would be a story passed down through generations, a testament to the unyielding spirit of freedom. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says 88, we will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.